Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive that might just shake things up a bit? We're going to explore the differences between men and women.
Ooh.
And trust me,
Yeah,
it goes way beyond just boys like blue, girls like pink.
you're absolutely right. We often hear about equality and how we're all striving for it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's be real, there are some fundamental differences between men and women that we can't just ignore. In fact,
No.
they're kind of what make us, well, us.
Okay, I'm hooked already.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with this? Is it all about those X and Y chromosomes?
It actually goes much deeper than that. It's about hormones,
Okay.
brain wiring, and even how society values certain traits in each gender.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So not just nature versus nurture,
Right.
but like a crazy combo of both.
Exactly. And get this, even though we live in a modern world,
Yeah.
some of these differences might actually be rooted in our hunter-gatherer past.
Okay, now my brain is doing backflips.
Yeah.
So, are we saying that caveman instincts are still driving us today?
Well, not exactly caveman, but those primal instincts definitely play a role in how we behave, especially in relationships. But before we get there, let's break down the basics. We know men and women have different bodies, right? That's clear from the start. But did you know those differences actually impact our health in some surprising ways?
You mean like stronger bones and bigger muscles for guys?
Well, yes, but it's even more than that. Those physical differences actually impact our health in some pretty surprising ways. For example, did you know women might have an advantage when it comes to endurance?
Seriously. But guys are usually the ones bragging about their marathon times.
It's true. It all comes down to fat. Women naturally have a higher percentage of body fat,
Interesting.
which is essential for their reproductive system,
Okay.
but also acts as the primary fuel source for endurance activities. So while men might have that explosive power, women could literally outrun them in the long haul.
Whoa, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
So ladies, next time a guy challenges you to a race, make sure it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the brain, the command center of it all. Get ready for this. Men and women's brains are actually wired differently.
Wait, what? You mean it's not just a stereotype that men are from Mars and women are from Venus?
It's actually more than just a catchy phrase. Research has actually shown that men have stronger connections in the areas of the brain associated with spatial reasoning and motor control.
So that's why they can parallel park and build IKEA furniture without having a meltdown.
Well, that's a simplified way to put it, but you're not entirely wrong. Those stronger connections might explain why men often excel at tasks that require spatial awareness and analytical thinking.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about women's brains? What are our superpowers?
Women, on the other hand, have more connections between the left and right hemispheres of the brain.
Wow.
This enhanced communication between different brain regions might explain why women are generally better at multitasking, picking up on social cues, and even deciphering emotions.
So like, we're the ultimate multitaskers with built-in lie detectors. That's pretty awesome. But if our brains are wired so differently, how does society view these differences, right?
Yeah.
Does one set of skills get valued more than the other?
That's a really important point. It's not just about how our brains are structured.
Right.
It's also about how society interprets and values those differences.
So are we talking about those stereotypical gender roles that we're always trying to break free from?
It's more complex than that. Think about it. Society often places a high value on men's financial success and physical strength, while women are often judged on their appearance and nurturing qualities.
Yeah, like how the media constantly bombards us with images of the ideal male and female body types.
Exactly. And while we're making progress in challenging these stereotypes, they still have a powerful influence on our perceptions and expectations.
It's kind of crazy to think that something as simple as how our brains are wired could lead to such complex societal implications.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now that we've laid the groundwork, are you ready to explore how these differences play out in relationships and mating strategies?
Okay, this is where I'm really curious. So spill the tea. What's the deal with men and women when it comes to love and all that jazz?
Well, hold on to your hats,
Who-
because this is where things get really interesting.
I'm ready. Bring on the mind-blowing and insights.
Let's talk about something called sexual strategies. It might sound a little clinical, but it's basically the evolutionary psychology behind how men and women approach relationships and mating.
Okay, this is getting juicy. I'm all ears.
From an evolutionary perspective, men are often driven by the urge to, well, spread their genes as widely as possible.
Wait, hold up. Are we saying guys are just programmed to be players?
Now, let's not jump to conclusions. It's not that simple. While men might be biologically wired to seek multiple partners, that doesn't mean they can't form deep, meaningful connections.
Okay, I'm listening. So, if men are all about quantity, what's the deal with women?
Women, on the other hand, are often driven by the need to find a partner who can provide resources and stability,
Okay.
ensuring the survival of their offspring.
So it's like we're hardwired to be picky,
You could say that. It's not about being materialistic or demanding.
right?
It's about making sure our potential children have the best chance of survival.
That makes sense. So we're looking for a partner who's got the whole package,
Mm-hmm.
good genes, stability,
Hmm.
and someone who can build a mean IKEA bookshelf.
Well, the IKEA part is debatable, but you get the idea. It's about finding a partner who complements our strengths and weaknesses.
This is blowing my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So are we saying that men and women are basically designed to be two sides of the same coin? Like yin and yang, but with chromosomes?
You're getting it. But remember, we're talking about inherent tendencies here, not absolutes. There's a whole lot more to unpack, so buckle up, because we're just getting started.
Okay, bring it on. This deep dive is getting more fascinating by the minute.
Great. Now let's delve deeper into how these different approaches to relationships can create both challenges and opportunities in the modern world. So we've talked about these different sexual strategies,
Right.
but where does that leave us in the modern world? Does this mean we're destined to be at odds?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to reconcile those primal urges with the whole happily ever after thing, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah.
And this is where understanding the differences between men and women can be so valuable.
Okay.
It's not about excusing bad behavior,
Right.
but rather about recognizing that we're approaching relationships from different starting points.
Okay, so how does this play out in real life? Give me an example.
Think about communication.
Okay.
Men often retreat into themselves when they're stressed,
Uh-huh.
while women might seek to talk things through.
Right.
It's not that men don't care,
Okay.
it's just that their brains are wired to compartmentalize and problem solve independently.
So it's not that he's ignoring me.
Yeah.
It's more like his brain needs some alone time to process.
Exactly. And women, with their interconnected brain hemispheres,
Yeah.
are often better at multitasking and processing emotions, so they might want to talk things out right away.
So it's not she's overreacting, it's her brain is firing on all cylinders, trying to make sense of things.
You got it.
Right.
Instead of seeing these differences as a source of conflict, imagine if we could appreciate them as strengths.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light here.
Uh.
But how do we actually put this into practice? It's easy to say, understand each other.
Right.
But how do we actually do that when our brains are working in such different ways?
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
Just knowing that these differences exist can make a huge difference in how we approach conflicts. Instead of blaming or criticizing, we can start to see things from our partner's perspective.
So instead of saying, you never listen to me,
Right.
maybe try, I know you need some time to think, but can we talk about this later?
Exactly. And for women, it might be about giving their partner that space to process, knowing that it's not personal, it's just how their brains work.
This is such a game changer. It's like we've been speaking different languages this whole time,
Yeah,
and now we're finally starting to understand each other.
that's a great analogy. And it goes beyond just communication.
Okay.
This understanding can extend to other areas of the relationship,
Like what?
like decision-making, problem-solving, and even intimacy.
So it's not about trying to change each other.
Right.
It's about appreciating our unique strengths and working together as a team.
You nailed it. Think about it. In a successful team, not everyone needs to have the same skills. It's the diversity of talents that makes a team strong.
This is making me think about the workplace too. If we applied this understanding of gender differences in a professional setting, could we create more effective and harmonious teams?
Absolutely. Imagine a workplace where men and women's strengths are recognized and valued,
Yeah.
where we leverage those differences to achieve common goals.
Right.
We could see a surge in creativity, productivity, and overall job satisfaction.
Okay. I'm officially on board with this whole embracing our differences thing. But it makes you wonder, why are we so quick to try to erase those differences instead of celebrating them?
That's a great question, and it's something we need to explore further. But first, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how these gender differences have shaped societal expectations and values over time. Are you ready to dive into the historical side of things?
Bring on the history lesson. I'm ready to see how those cavemen and cavewomen started this whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus's thing.
Well, it might not be as simple as that, but I promise you it's just as fascinating. So let's go back in time and explore how these differences have influenced our social structures and cultural norms.
Okay, so we've explored how men and women are wired differently
Right.
and how those differences can impact relationships.
Yes.
But how does this all tie into the bigger picture? How has history and society shaped our understanding of gender roles?
That's where things get really fascinating. If we rewind back to those hunter-gatherer days,
Okay.
the division of labor was pretty clear-cut. Men were the hunters and protectors,
Whoa.
while women were the gatherers and nurturers.
So basically, guys were out wrestling mammoths while the ladies were back at the cave tending the fire and inventing Pinterest.
Well, maybe not Pinterest, but you get the idea. Those roles were essential for survival back then. And even though we've evolved way past hunting and gathering, those primal instincts still linger in our subconscious, influencing our behaviors and expectations.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think that something that happened thousands of years ago could still be affecting us today, isn't it?
It is, and those early divisions of labor likely contributed to the development of different skills and traits in men and women.
Okay.
Men honed their spatial reasoning and problem-solving abilities while hunting,
Right.
while women developed their communication and multitasking skills while tending to the home and community.
So those cave women were basically the original CEOs running the whole show back at the cave.
You could say that, and those skills, honed over generations, have been passed down to us, shaping our perceptions of what it means to be male or female.
But here's the thing. We live in a modern world where those traditional roles aren't as clear-cut anymore.
Right.
Women are CEOs and astronauts, and men are stay-at-home dads and nurses.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile those ancient instincts with the realities of modern life?
That's the million-dollar question. It's about finding a balance between acknowledging those inherent differences and creating a society where both men and women can express their full potential.
So it's not about going back to the cave.
No.
It's about taking the best of both worlds and moving forward.
Exactly. Imagine a world where we value men's strength and decisiveness alongside women's empathy and intuition, where we leverage those differences to create stronger teams, more fulfilling relationships, and a more balanced society.
That sounds pretty utopian, doesn't it? But how do we actually get there?
It starts with awareness, with conversations like this one.
Okay.
The more we understand about these differences, the better equipped we are to challenge outdated stereotypes and create a world where everyone can thrive.
So instead of trying to fit everyone into the same mold,
Right.
we should be celebrating our unique strengths and using them to complement each other.
Precisely. It's like a dance, finding that perfect rhythm between our masculine and feminine energies.
Okay, that's a beautiful way to put it. So to wrap things up, what's the biggest takeaway you want our listener to walk away with today?
Men and women are different, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's what makes us amazing. Embrace those differences. Celebrate them and use them to create a world where everyone can shine.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. We've covered a lot of ground today, from brain wiring to hunter-gatherers to the dance of masculine and feminine energy.
It has been quite the journey.
It really has.
Yeah.
And to our listener, we want to leave you with this. Keep exploring these ideas. Keep questioning and keep the conversation going. The more we understand about ourselves and each other, the brighter our future will be.
And remember, in a world that often tries to divide us, let's choose to celebrate the very things that make us unique.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds open and stay curious.